I'm married to Ken, but we haven't gotten the papers yet. According to our customs, you gotta have a baby on the way before you register the marriage. Ken's been working hard every night for this father through child thing. Finally, I saw those 2 lines on the test. Left him a note saying, bye-bye. 4 years later, I was dropping my son off at kindergarten. Dozens of black cars were parked at the entrance, looking shady. I parked my e-bike a bit further away, and my son mumbled, "Who's that?" I stopped in my tracks. "Your dad." After the wedding, Ken pulled out the household register, hands shaking nervously. "Let's go to the Civil Affairs Bureau and register our marriage." Compared to him, I was super chill. "Let's wait a bit." Ken seemed like he got hit with a bucket of cold water. "Still have to wait. We just had a wedding today, and not getting registered." Yep. I avoided his gaze. "According to our customs, you have the wedding first, then register once there's a baby on the way." Ken acted like he'd never heard of such a thing, looking completely baffled. "Where'd you hear this old-fashioned custom? That doesn't make sense." Back home, Ken nearly lost his breath. "I don't care what your customs are. I wanna get the papers today, not a day later, or it's gonna be a joke." He made a hasty U-turn, grumbling. I swallowed and said calmly, "Ken, I always thought you respected me." "Of course I respect you." He slowed down for safety. "You said you're used to living in your studio and don't wanna move. I moved in with you instead. Your parents are abroad, so we skipped the part where they go on stage. Your friends are shy, so I didn't even greet them. Isn't that respect?" I couldn't find any fault in him, so I pointed out mine. "You know I've always been a traditional girl. I'm not like those casual girls you meet. If we register today, my parents would disown me." The more I spoke, the more anxious I felt. Tears leaked uncontrollably. Ken panicked, pulling over. "No way, you're their daughter. They would never cut you off. You don't understand." I sobbed. "We had such strict upbringing. My mom, no. My dad broke several sticks on me as a kid. In our family, mistakes are not an option." Ken's face grew darker, sounding annoyed. "What kind of parents do that? Not worth having." I snapped. "So, you want me to break ties with them for you?" "No, I didn't mean it like that. Let's just follow your customs. Register after you're pregnant." He turned and kissed me, like reassuring himself, "It won't be long." I was touched. "I trust you." He wasn't in the best mood. His actions that night were rough. I was trying to bear it, but couldn't hold back. Kicked him off the bed. "Don't wanna do it, then don't." Wanna. Ken scrambled back up, finally seemed to snap back to his senses. Have to say, he's got skills, really good, even. I was pretty satisfied. After a long ordeal, I got up to shower, but Ken pulled me back. "Aren't we trying for a baby? Don't wash up." But today was too much. It's uncomfortable. Ken looked all pleased, like he just got high praise. Too much. I thought it was too little. He held me close. "Let's add a bit more." I was too exhausted to move in the end. I'm Linda, bit of a heartbreaker. Want a kid, but not into having a man around. Like dating, not marriage. I've been on tons of dating apps. Chatted up a lot of men. Heard you don't have to commit, and a lot of guys get eager. Just sowing seeds, that's what they're good at. But in the end, their photos fooled me. None of them matched my genetic aesthetics. Had no choice. So I hung around the university gate and found Ken. He certainly wasn't a student. I thought he was a teacher. Teachers are great, they are smart. After dating a while, I found out he's a boss. He was at the school discussing investment projects. We had already gotten intimate by then. He started cautious with protection. I was furious. "I'm here for a baby, and you're using protection. What's the deal?" I acted all hurt. "You don't want responsibility. Afraid I'll cling if I get pregnant. I see, you just want to fool around." As if. Ken rushed to explain. "I've even thought of what to name our kid. I was worried you weren't prepared." I laughed through tears. "I'm totally ready." Once I learned about his family's background, I got spooked, ready to back out. But he was probably at peak dopamine then. I mentioned breaking up, and he dropped everything to ask why I'd dump him. Afraid he'd go overboard, I made up an excuse that I was testing his feelings. Ken almost crushed me in a hug, voice hoarse. "Don't ever test me again. I'd go nuts." Crazy murder stories flashed through my mind. Scared to break it off, I tried to keep him steady, but he was in such a rush. Soon wanted to take me to meet his parents and get married. I could only say, "Let's wait." But he took it as a hint, and planned a grand proposal pronto. In front of his friends and family, I couldn't say no. Everything happened so fast, even setting a date for the wedding. Ken, busy as he was, only then realized he hadn't met my parents. So I came up with a quick one. "They're abroad. Job's too unique. Half a year till they're back. Let's push the wedding." "No way, invites are already out." He had a gut feeling time wasn't on his side. I thought, fine, let's have the wedding. Meet them when they return. We could have the wedding, but skip the registration for now. But I've gotta get pregnant ASAP. Otherwise, delaying too long even a love-struck Ken would catch on. Ken's busy at work lately, so our honeymoon is on hold. The next day, I arranged to meet up with Sandy. She's the only friend I've introduced to Ken. Honestly, I think Ken's pretty decent. Maybe I should just settle down with him. She's not saying this for the first time. She thinks Ken's looks, character, and family background are great, and marrying him will lead to a happy life for me. But life is long, who can really say for sure? Maybe, but I don't want to gamble. I didn't come to hear her say that today though. Those people from yesterday, are they legit? Sandy rolled her eyes at me. Of course, they're all tourists from out of town. After the wedding yesterday, they all caught flights. I watched them go through the boarding gate. Yep, the so-called friends at my wedding were all extras. I don't know any of them. To make sure Ken wouldn't catch on, I asked Sandy to help out and check with a travel agency to find a tour group from out of town. I just told them to come, eat, don't say a word, and leave after the wedding. My apartment is quite far from Ken's company. It's not easy for him to commute every day. I feel bad for him, so I make soup for him. Ken gave me a meaningful look, and scallions and oysters. Looks like I haven't been performing well enough. I was planning to watch a movie later that night, but Ken just suddenly pounced on me. I smacked him. What's the rush? He buried his head in my shirt. If I wasn't quick, wouldn't it waste your effort on this kidney-boosting meal you made? He can see through that. I'm not sure if the meal did anything, but I feel Ken is more enduring than before. So, I kept on experimenting with dishes for him. Unfortunately, at the end of the month, I got my period. I sat there for a long time, chin on hand, bent over on the toilet. How come I'm not getting pregnant? What's the issue? Ken knocked on the door. Babe, why aren't you out yet? Need help? He probably thinks I'm constipated and wants to get me a laxative. His voice just sets me off. I pulled up my pants, opened the door, and glared at him fiercely. You're coming to the hospital with me tomorrow for a checkup. The next day, we ran into his mom, Lily, at the hospital. She's recently gotten into traditional Chinese medicine, and was asking about my health. I shook my head. How about you check Ken instead? Lily immediately shifted focus. Son, are you sick? Ken's face turned colors. Mom, just let it go and head home. Lily still looked skeptical, but got into the elevator. I took Ken to see a male fertility specialist, and after a thorough checkup, the doctor said he's perfectly fine. Ken stood straighter. I told you, I'm clean as a whistle, never fool around. How could I have issues? I wondered aloud. Could it be my problem? If you're okay, and I'm okay, then we're both okay. Ken looked assured. Let's head home. But that evening, Lily called us back for dinner. She cheerfully pulled Ken aside for a chat, but I heard it all. Lily's voice was kind but firm. Son, don't lose heart. Modern medicine is advanced. Just cooperate with the doctors, and there's nothing that can't be fixed. Ken was almost fuming. Mom, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm in good shape. No need to meddle. Lily looked uncertain. Sure you're fine. Ken, absolutely. Lily, I'll get to hold a chubby grandkid. Ken, definitely. Lily breathed a sigh of relief. That's great to hear. I went back to munching on my apple. Ken's company is in a critical project phase. Sometimes, he needs to entertain clients personally, but he mostly avoids drinking. If he drinks, I won't let him near me. On the surface, I claim it's because I don't like the smell, but really, I fear it'll affect the quality of my future baby. One day, he messaged me. I'm stuck with these people. Can you come get me? Stuck, meaning someone is trying to throw women at him. Rescuing my husband, of course, no problem. I took a cab to the hotel, and found the room Ken was in. I walked in and threw my bag at him. Look at the time. Enjoying the music outside. Enjoying the drinks outside. Don't want to come home. Fine, never come back. Everyone in the room was scared by my fierce act. Ken looked sheepish and turned to the middle-aged men. Sorry, guys, strict home rules. Not home by 10. And it's kneeling on a board for me. Ken then turned to me. Sorry, honey, you wait outside. I'll wrap up and come out right away. 3 minutes, 1 second more, and you're out of the house. As I left, I gave the bosses a hard glare. Outside the room, I started heading downstairs. I was stopped at the bottom of the stairs. Linda, is that really you? I looked up to see someone who made my skin crawl. Sorry, I don't know you. I slid past him. Victor caught up. Long time no see. Let's have a drink together. I quickened my pace, heading for the door. He held the car door. So, finally caught a rich one. I felt nauseous. Let go. What's the point of pretending in front of me? How's it serving the old men? I shoved his hand, and the door slammed on it. Victor, embarrassed and furious, raised a hand against me, but his arm was caught by someone else's grip. Ken stood between us and nodded for me to get in the car. Victor eyed Ken incredulously. "You're the rich guy Linda snagged, young and better looking than him." He couldn't believe it. "That's right." I clung to Ken's arm. "Meet my husband." Ken's expression softened a bit and released Victor's hand. "Who are you?" Victor grinned. "I'm Linda's ex." Ken stopped, turned around, and frowned at me. "Didn't you say I'm your first love?" I froze. "Yeah, Ken is my first." Next second, I looked at Ken with a pitiful expression. "Honey, I did have dinner with him." Ken's face changed instantly. "Dinner?" I pouted. "You really think there are those kinds of guys out there who, when a girl looks their way, think they're God's gift? Girls dress up a little, and they assume it's for them. Share a meal, and they think they've got a girlfriend. Do you think their brains work differently?" Next second, Ken looked disdainful. Victor's furious voice mixed with car exhaust. "You both need help." Unsure who really needs it. Victor was someone I met online who looked decent enough, with a persona of success. But if he hadn't tried to spike my drink when I wasn't looking, I might still respect him. Back then, I didn't even know Sandy. That day, she was taking a client to a hotel and happened to see Victor supporting my woozy self to get a room. Sensing something off, she threatened to call the cops unless the front desk let her in. Turns out, after a trip to the hospital, tests confirmed I indeed had some sketchy stuff in my system. After gathering evidence, Victor got nabbed and was held for 10 days. Ever since, I've lost all faith in guys I meet through social apps. All those dudes flirting online aren't up to any good. After comparing, I realized how rare it is to find a decent man. When I got back home, Ken threw a little tantrum. "Why didn't I meet you sooner? That way other guys wouldn't have had the chance to date you." I honestly didn't get why some guys lose patience and blame their girlfriends for being jealous. I kinda liked it, though. I whispered to him, "Don't fret. From now on, I'm having every meal with you." Ken pouted. "Then come to the office tomorrow and join me for lunch." The next day, I started preparing soup early. By the time I arrived at Ken's office with the thermos, it was only 10:30 a.m. But guess what? Ken's secretary stumbles out of his office, all disheveled, and looks super flustered when she sees me. "Ken's out handling some things, not at the office," she said, standing in the doorway as if to block me. I glanced at her smeared lipstick and missing shirt buttons, letting out a cold laugh. I've been putting in the effort to take care of Ken's diet and routines, hoping for a perfectly healthy and exceptional baby. And here he is, messing around outside, totally disregarding all my hard work. No wonder he's got fertility issues. I chucked the food in the trash. On my way downstairs, Ken calls me. "I had to dash for a client meeting. I won't be at the office for lunch. Don't bother coming over." These guys and their lies. Still fuming, I drove myself to the hospital. The doctor suggested an ultrasound. Why is that necessary now? I thought, am I pregnant? Turns out I was. 5 weeks in, early pregnancy. If not for today's drama, I might not have found out. My anger vanished. I called Sandy immediately. "I did it. Come help me pack. I'm leaving. And bring along that friend of yours who sells real estate." That afternoon, I sold my apartment at 20% below market price. I packed my things, cancelled my phone plan, and most importantly, left Ken a note. "I'm done playing your game. Bye." According to Sandy, when Ken discovered I was gone, he turned to her as my only real friend. Sticking to our plan, Sandy swore she had no idea where I was and even produced an IOU, claiming I owed her $500,000. She asked Ken if he'd settle it for me. Ken seethed. "We've got unfinished business. You'll have to find her yourself." Had I not caught him with that secretary, I might have felt guilty running away. Knowing what he's like, I felt zero guilt. 4 years later, down south in a small city, I picked a well-rated preschool. I tied a small tie on my son and warned him, "No bullying other kids at school, okay?" Justin rolled his eyes. "Yes, Mom. I won't start conflicts unless provoked. And if someone does provoke you, I'll run. Win or lose, it's not worth it." Perfect. I placed a helmet on him and set him on the scooter seat. We embarked leisurely towards the preschool and immediately noticed all the parked cars. Black cars lined the street, leaving no space for our scooter. I parked on the roadside and lifted my son off. He, clutching milk, while I nibbled a sandwich. Checking the car logo, I muttered, "These Audis are pricey. Let's keep our distance. Wouldn't want to scratch one." Justin waddled behind me and couldn't resist. "Whose car is that? Let me see which family's kid is in there, so my Justin can steer clear." And there in the crowded throng, I spotted a familiar face. "Ken, it's your dad." I picked up Justin and turned, run. In my haste, I caught Ken's attention. "Linda, stop right there." No clue how Ken tracked us down, but I knew the classic move for any given situation. Justin, you go left. I'll head right. Meet around back. With a serious nod, Justin replied, yes, Mama. Stay safe. He swiftly darted into a stationery shop and slipped out the back. If I'd known there was an exit, I would have escaped with him. Panting, I tore through the streets, ensuring Ken wasn't following before pausing to relax. Seems another relocation is on the cards. But reaching the backyard entrance, Justin was nowhere to be seen. Little guy's short legs must have slowed him down. In no time, Justin appeared, looking upset and surrounded by bodyguards. We're doomed. My kid's captured. Ken lingered just behind. Do you even know where you're going? This is our third time circling around here. Justin's gaze caught mine hiding behind a tree, prompting a sudden cry. Ken fretted. Why are you crying? I'm not being mean to you. Through tears, Justin said, you're bad. Even if you hit me, I won't take you home. There was no point in hiding anymore. Scooping up some dirt, I charged Ken. As he turned, eat this. The narrow corridor echoed with the bodyguard's grim expressions. Even the neighbor's dog caught on and tucked its tail. Ken emerged freshly showered, eyeing the cramped decor with a scoff. You and my son live in this tiny dump. I really didn't appreciate that. Who's your son? Gazing at Justin, he asserted. I checked. He was born in August 2021. Why, Linda? Why didn't you tell me you were pregnant? Why did you leave? Well, such things are hard to keep secret, especially since Justin's features were practically a mini Ken. I cleared my throat and sat up straight. Actually, I owe money to a loan shark. The debt collector said if I don't pay up, they'll come after my family. So for your safety, I have to leave. Ken blinked, surprised. You think I'll believe such a lame excuse? I put on a serious face. I'm not lying, it's true. After a moment of silence, Ken asked, how much do you owe? I hesitated and held up 2 fingers. Ken guessed, 20 million. Yes, I admitted, even though I couldn't figure out how I'd end up owing that much. Ken nodded. I'll pay it for you. Pack your stuff and come back to City A with me now. Though I really didn't want to go back, Ken had the upper hand and used our son to force the issue. The first thing he wanted was to register our marriage. You promised. According to your hometown's customs, you're supposed to register after pregnancy. The kid's already this big, it's about time. What? He's still so insistent. It was so sudden. Ken raised his voice. Sudden. Was it as sudden as when you left? Do you know, when I returned and found our home in chaos, I thought it was robbed. A random woman told me it was her house and I should leave. I went crazy trying to find you, thinking something bad happened. Do you know what these 4 years were like for me? I'd never seen Ken this emotional before. Instinctively, I shrank back a little. I pinched Justin's arm lightly, and he got the hint. He started crying loudly. Mommy, I'm scared. I quickly hugged him so Ken wouldn't notice the lack of tears. See, a dad appearing out of nowhere. Isn't that sudden? Ken took a deep breath. So, what should we do? I pretended to think seriously. We'll get married when our son accepts you. Where Ken got his confidence, I don't know, but he agreed. With Ken looking after the kid, I went to meet up with Sandy. She was shocked. How come you got caught and brought back? I shot her an annoyed glare. I told you not to mail toys to my son. Ken used the delivery slip to find me. We all thought after so long Ken would have given up, but he had people watching Sandy the whole time. One slip, and he tracked down my hiding spot. Sandy slapped her forehead. Careless. I wondered why I got a $50,000 transfer from Ken. It was a thank you fee. So Sandy handed the $50,000 over to me to fund my next escape. When I got home, Ken and Justin were sitting across from each other at the table. Ken stared at the boy with a mix of furrowed brows and amused smiles. He offered a piece of chocolate. Want this? Justin gave it a cool glance. It causes cavities. Ken hurriedly switched to a box of chips, but still got no smile. Junk food damages health. Ken scrambled through the snacks, looking desperate. What do you want? I'll buy it for you. Justin gave him a haughty look. Mommy says bad guys lure kids with food. Ken dropped what he was holding, frustrated. I'm not a bad guy. I'm your dad. No, you're a bad guy. A really bad guy. Justin said. When he saw me come in, he looked like he was saved. You're back. Are you hungry? I'll cook. Before dinner was ready, the doorbell rang. Ms. Lily burst in, full of urgency. Where's the kid? Let me see my grandchild. Though my marriage with Ken fell apart quickly, Ms. Lily still treated me well. Call her grandma. Little Justin was well behaved. Hi, grandma. Ms. Lily beamed with pride, so well-mannered. Ken's face turned a bit sour. Mom, why are you here? Ms. Lily snapped. Don't call me mom. I won't be your mom until my grandson acknowledges you. She came as quickly as she left, saying she'd come stay to help with the grandson. Ken urged her not to make trouble. She left, calling him ungrateful. Since Justin insisted on sleeping with me at night, Ken had to sleep in the guest room. As we snuggled under the blanket, we talked about Ken. Mom, he said if I call him Dad, I'd inherit his estate. Is he rich? How shameless, bribing a 3-year-old. I don't know, but he's definitely richer than your mom. Don't worry, you have the same rights as any child born out of wedlock. What if he has more kids? Well, there's nothing we can do. Even if you call him Dad, you can't prevent that. Don't be greedy. Just take what you can get. Justin nodded. When I inherit, I'll buy you delicious food. I'll have to outlive Ken for that. Ken found a preschool for Justin. He went to work during the day and took care of the child at night. I didn't have much to do, so I got pretty bored. Then things got interesting. Ken went to pick up Justin from school and didn't come back for a long time. He texted me an address. When I got there, it was a playground. Justin was playing inside. Ken was sitting at a table with a woman. Ken didn't look happy. Do you know her? I studied the woman, but didn't recognize her. She kept signaling to me. Don't you remember your aunt? Aunt? I was puzzled, and Ken questioned the aunt again. Do you even know your niece's name? My heart skipped a beat. Ken gave a bitter smile. Linda, do you and your aunt not recognize each other? During the wedding 4 years ago, Ken didn't greet my friends and family, but he had such a good memory. He remembered their faces. So when he saw my aunt on the street, he approached her. She couldn't recall from so long ago. She was just there for a free meal. Ken quickly pieced it together. He was furious. Linda, you never planned to marry me, did you? His confrontation caught me off guard, but I was somewhat prepared. Yeah, I just thought you looked good and had good genes, so I wanted a baby with you. Before you, I checked out a lot of guys. None met my standards. You got lucky, that's all. Ken's last shred of hope vanished. So, you've been playing with my feelings this whole time. I smirked sarcastically. And what about you, her? Haven't you and your stunning secretary been getting cozy for ages? Sure, I had my own motives, but you're not exactly clean either. We're both a mess. Ken looked shocked. What secretary? You mean Dora? I got nothing going on with her. There was no point in arguing anymore. Don't tell me you forgot. On the last day, we planned to have dinner with you. I got there early and happened to catch your secretary Dora walking out of your office looking disheveled. Surely, she told you I stopped by. Ken frowned, seeming to recall something. Then he blurted out a curse. He grabbed his phone and made a call. Get your ass over here now. Neither of us said another word. I was waiting for him to make excuses, while he was waiting for someone to show up. Half an hour later, his buddy Evan swaggered in. Long time no see, her. The next second, Ken kicked him to the ground. I could kill you right now. Evan got back up, wincing. Ken, you've lost it. Didn't I tell you if you wanna mess around, do it outside? You made my wife leave. I watched the two guys brawl right in front of me. Dora rushed in to stop the chaos. They explained that Ken wasn't in the office that day. It was Evan, getting cozy with Ken's secretary. And the funny part, those two got married the next year. Dora kept apologizing, saying how her thing with Evan led to a big misunderstanding between Ken and me. All three of them looked at me anxiously, waiting for a reaction. I nodded slightly. Yeah, I get it. At night, after Justin fell asleep, I got up, grabbed 2 beers, and sat on the balcony. I knew Ken was awake too. He sat beside me, not saying a word. I took a sip, and he'd take a sip too. Remember how I told you my folks were abroad? Yeah, Ken chuckled self-deprecatingly. Another lie, right? I laughed along. Of course, it was. I actually don't have parents. My dad ran off with another woman, and my mom passed away. Ken paused for a moment, listening. I was around 5 when my dad fell for a beautiful woman and wanted to divorce my mom. My mom refused, dead set on believing she lost my dad because she didn't give him a son. So she went and had an affair herself. Her reason was different though. She wanted a son with someone else to win back my dad's heart. It's crazy, right? Of course, my dad found out in the end. He could cheat all he wanted, but couldn't stand my mom hooking up with someone else. He went ballistic, calling her a tramp, and even swindled her into signing divorce papers. My mom did have a son in the end, but she died from childbirth complications. The guy she hooked up with took the boy back to his wife, who was cool with raising him. When I got into college, that family showed up. They told me my half-brother was about to start middle school and needed a place to live nearby. And they thought I should get a job to buy him a house. This world is one big mental asylum. It's crazy. Something wild happening every day. I tossed the empty bottle aside, and Ken handed me a fresh can. So you don't want to get married? Yeah, what's the point? Marriage can't promise people won't cheat, can't guarantee happiness for kids. Ken's voice was rough. Linda, I can promise. It sounded like a joke. Most guys say that at first. You and I both know how it usually ends. So, I just want a kid, not for carrying on any legacy or to tie a guy down. A girl can be a brat, a boy can be soft. I'll let them be who they are. Honestly, you're a decent guy. Ken cut me off quickly. Don't want any nice guy awards here. Since you think I'm so great, why not give it a shot? People aren't all the same. You can't just write everyone off. A lot of women thought they were the lucky one, right up until everything unraveled. Marriage doesn't cement loyalty, vows can't trap a soul. That's why to me, marriage makes little difference. So, Ken, I turned to look at him, eyes slightly glazed. I'm not getting married. If that's what you want, look elsewhere. Ken gently lifted my chin, eyes deep and serious. Too late, Linda. From the moment you walked in, there was never anyone else. You don't want marriage, then we won't. I'm with you. I let out a soft laugh, leaning against his shoulder. Men, always tossing promises around easily. I ended up in a sleepy haze, with Ken carrying me back to bed. Since then, Ken never brought up marriage again. To everyone else, we seemed married for 4 years already. We lived together, slept together, raised kids together. Really, it's just like a regular couple. Me, Justin, and Ms. Lily are all beneficiaries of Ken's estate, legally declared. But my stuff only goes to my son. Too little to spread around. Sometimes Justin stayed with his grandma for a few days, and Ken and I would head out. My mom ditched me to go on a trip with her boyfriend. He'd laugh. Not being married has its perks. Every day feels like dating. If things go south, there's no paperwork hassle, no calculating gains or losses, just freedom. Years down the road, we've lost interest in all that earthly desire. Just laying in bed together, I asked Ken, still wanna keep on? Ken answered with a slight hesitation. Yeah, too lazy to redo the will.